means it's another week of high school football in North Georgia. Hello, everyone. I'm Will Cooper alongside my co host. You know him, you love him. I have shouted his accolades from the mountaintops and the rooftops in weeks past. I will leave it short and sweet. When you see his beautiful smile, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. It is Art Mosley. Art, how are you doing, my friend?
Coop, I am doing fantastic. Just getting over a little sinus infection. But before I start complaining about my situation, as we record today, it is Veterans Day, November the 11th, a day of remembrance for all of our honor, excuse me, not honor for all of our veterans who serve in all five branches of the armed forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and the Coast Guard. We just want to say thank you for protecting our freedoms and allowing us to do things like this, make a podcast, and just live our lives. So, Coop, I am in ultimate and great reverence and gratitude to all of the men for the armed services. And, for my family, that includes my dad, my father-in-law. I have a couple of nephews. I have a great-great-grandfather, a grandfather who was in the military. So on and on and on. So thank you for all of those, our neighbors, friends, mentors that have served in the military. We do appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah. My family, grandfather, brother, great uncle. I mean, the long list of extended family. So very thankful for all of their service and everyone out there who served. We very much appreciate you and protecting our freedoms and allowing us to come on here and spend a little time with you on this chilly Tuesday to hopefully get you ready for the playoffs and celebrate this great country in one of America's greatest pastimes. It's not baseball we're talking about. It is November. It's time to talk about high school football, especially playoff high school football, which are we've got 3 games to go over here. We'll also go over our brackets before we submit them into the official contest. We mentioned this before, but we're very excited to be competing. Not only head to head, you and I will be competing in our own right, but we will also be doing it in the statewide tournament as well. But with all of that out of the way, my friend, if you're ready, let's jump right into it.
Let's jump right into it, Coop. We're going to start backwards here. If I know we typically go in alphabetical order, but I want to go in seeding this week. And first up, maybe in their consecutive David versus Goliath matchup, the Woodstock Wolverines will be going down to South Georgia to face Thomas County Central. Coop, um, before we even talk about this matchup, let's kind of talk about how Woodstock got there. And they're the fourth seed in the region. They kind of had an up and down season. Really did the Wolverines coming into this ball game. Only a 2-3 record in their last 5 games, but made it back to the playoffs. And we'll I think we got Coach Devine here calling, or we'll be talking to him momentarily, and we want to ask him about that. But Woodstock back in the playoffs for the second consecutive year, but like last year, facing a number one, number two team in the state in Class 5A.
Yeah, it's been a tough draw for Woodstock the last 2 years. Last year it felt like okay, they had to go play Milton, but they had made it to the playoffs, and that was almost enough for us as fans of the county. But also, it seemed like for the program because they hadn't been in at that point 5 or 6 years. So getting back to that point was enough. I think this year, they're a little more hungry than they were last year. You mentioned it kind of being an up and down year. If we can go all the way back to August, the loss to Etowah to start off the year, rattling off 3 straight wins after that. And then in the region, it was a region that was so confusing when they beat River Ridge, who went on to beat Sequoyah. The last second loss to Creekview, Sprayberry comes in a couple of weeks ago and really handled Woodstock, which we didn't expect to see. But this was a program that was very kind of didn't know what to expect week to week. And I think we continue that sentiment this week in facing Thomas County Central and a team that has been the pinnacle of consistency, especially from the defensive side of the football.
Absolutely, Coop. Again, Thomas County Central allowing just a smidge over 7 points a game. Before we talk about that, we do have Coach Devine on the phone. We want to go to him, get his thoughts on Woodstock's season and what his thoughts are on this upcoming matchup.
Joining us now on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast, the head coach for the Woodstock Wolverines, Coach Dan Devine. Coach, thank you for being back with us.
Pleasure to be back, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Coach. We always look forward to it, especially in the month of November, because that means we're in playoff time. Before we get into the matchup that's coming up this week for you guys, kind of want to look back. It's been a while since we had the opportunity to talk to you. I think it was back in early October, so a lot's happened since then. The one thing that kind of stayed true through the month of October was that you guys were really locked walked into the playoffs with that win over River Ridge early in September. But since then, faced some quality opponents, obviously wrapped up the season against Sprayberry. Take us back through kind of the last month for your program and what you saw, some growth and some things you want to improve on as you get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a back and forth, a little inconsistent, like towards the end. I think, defensively we grew, had our first shutout in about 15 or 16 years, which was positive, kind of reassure our spot, but played really tough opponents. I think, tough opponents with great athletes. So, but proud of our guys, for fighting through and just working through everything. And I think that's the one thing you take away is, after a loss, how you react, and how do you go from there. And our kids came back and worked and fought and did enough to get us in. And here we are in November football, and you can't really beat it in the state of Georgia. So we're excited to be here.
Coach, this is a second consecutive season that you have taken Woodstock to the playoffs. In terms of your program, how does this feel? Are you right on schedule where you want it to be? I know you talked about earlier in the season, it's just, taking step by steps and what can we do to make the playoffs and the region title. But from if you were giving us a quick evaluation of the last 3 seasons at Woodstock football, where do you stand right now?
Yeah, I think major growth, obviously, we call it year 0, but year 1. And we just call it year 0 because you're kind of laying your foundation, your culture, and you're kind of building your program from the ground up how you want it. And then like I told you all last year, I think we're kind of a year ahead of schedule. We made it into the postseason, had the big win at Creekview last year and to kind of solidify our spot, which was great. And then this year, this was kind of the expectation. I think it was a postseason goal for sure. Obviously, we wanted to finish higher than we did. Maybe host a game in the postseason. I think that's always a great goal for a program on the rise, like we are. But bottom line is we're still a postseason team, and we're one of 32 in Class 5A, and we're kind of proud of that. So really proud of how we grew and our growth as a program, and we're just kind of taking it step by step. But proud of our guys and our staff for sticking with it and getting back to November.
Yeah, great points, Coach. And one thing we've asked all other 5 county coaches, and I want to ask you about it, is this new playoff format that's been proposed and will be coming out here in the next couple of years with the power rankings and PSRs and all these things that we've kind of broken down. Is that anything that you have taken a look at? Anything that you like about it, dislike about it? Anything that jumps off to you on the page? I know that when I looked and filled out a fake bracket for what it would be, you guys would play Sequoyah again, just by seedings if it was this year. But is there anything that you notice on that you feel like is worth mentioning?
Well, first, let me say this. For somebody who has to go back-to-back number 1 teams in the 5A classification, I am a power ranking fan currently. So anytime you got to go 2 years in a row to the number 1 team in the classification, I think I'm a power rankings fan. But I am familiar with it. I came from the state of South Carolina before here, so we did something similar there where we had, big 16, little 32, and we would do the same. And kind of strength to schedule that, so I like it. I think it's more balanced at the end. I think you give, teams that, for us example this year that may have a shot, in that first round instead of, going down to a heavy hitter. So, I think it's interesting. I like it. And, it also makes you, going into your schedule next year, really think and evaluate who you're going to schedule, because of it's like a 1/3 of an equation with your wins, your opponent's wins, and their opponent's wins. So you kind of gotta really think about and kind of scheduling cupcakes are out of the way too now. So because you got to really think about that. So I like it. I think it's makes you think a little bit moving into non-region schedule, and then your region schedule too. So I like it. I think it's interesting, and I think it's good for Georgia football.
Coach, as we look at your roster, win, lose, or draw on Friday night, you've got a lot of production coming back. How important is it for them to soak in this opportunity here they have on Friday night to be back in the playoffs for some of them, to have two playoff high school playoff games, November games under their belt, albeit against perhaps a favorite to win it all. How important is it not just one to go down there and win a ball game, but two just for that playoff experience?
Oh, it's huge. I think that's, looking back at when we got here year one. I mean, that's what we wanted. We wanted to be practicing and playing in November. Anytime you get a practice in November or you go down to play a game like this in a great atmosphere like that in front of 12,000 fans and the whole county is going to be out there for their game, I think that's what you want to bring your kids to. And as a coach, as a competitor, that's what you always want, right? So I think, doing that a second straight year and playing the quality of opponent we're playing, I think it's pretty awesome. And, going into an off season that, you tell your kids, okay, that's the expectation. This is now what we've seen. So that's where we kind of get our game to, so it kind of motivates you going in the off season for sure. But, yeah, I think we're looking forward to it, and it's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere, and it's going to be fun.
And coach, as you're kind of getting ready for this team coming up again, TCC, as Art mentioned, a lot of people have them winning their bracket. Not dissimilar to what happened last year. Like you mentioned, Milton was the draw last year, and they're a very competitive team. Maybe even a little similarities between the two. But do you pull on that experience from last year, especially with Burmeister starting that game last year and then also starting this game? Is that something that you rely on with your players having the experience of going on the road and playing a number one team? Or is it something that you're just trying to get them to focus on the here and the now, and you're more focused on what the challenges are this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you do. I think, Graham having another year under his belt, Trace too, and your leaders on the back end for us defensively all played in that game last year. A lot of our kids did as sophomores and juniors. So I think that can only help you going in to a tough opponent. And, it's our philosophy is we're going to work and we're going to prep to win a football game, whether it's number 1, 10, 5, whoever that may be. And I think that's the beauty of this year is our kids were willing to go to work, and the all factor, was last year was there. And I think you're going in now, they realize, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is how we're going to prep. And, you go down, you fight, and you never know. And I think they're excited for that. So for sure, I think that only helps you in your growth as a program moving forward.
Coach, we've danced around it enough on Friday night. You guys will travel down to Thomasville to take on Thomas County Central at the Jacket's Nest. What will it take? What do you know about Thomas County Central, and what will it take for Woodstock to shock the world on Friday night?
Well, they're really freaking good. So that I know. Forgive my language, but they are really good at every position. There's really not a weakness, from their starting 11 on both sides of the ball. Power 4 kids all over the place. So we're going to have to go down and play close to perfect. We know that. Is there a perfect? Probably not, but we're going to have to be consistent moving the ball. We're going to have to get stops on defense and get off the field if possible. So, our kids know. I mean, they watch film. They're not, they see what we see. But again, for them, it's the challenge of it. It's exciting. It's the trip. It's the atmosphere. And we're going to go down and we're going to fight our tails off like we've been all year. So that's all I told them they can ask for. And we're going to have a great plan. We're going to have to get, do things to get possessions and
So thank you to Coach Devine for joining us. Sorry about the little breakup there at the end, a little bit of technical difficulties there as we got towards the end of that segment. But we appreciate him being with us. I think the point that he was trying to make there at the end before we got disconnected was really about how good Thomas County Central has been this year, and for Woodstock having to go on the road down to Middle Georgia, facing a program that is going to show up and show out. It's going to take the Wolverines' best effort, and for them to fix all of the things that they've wanted to fix all year long, and probably even then force a couple of mistakes from Thomas County Central to really find a way to pull out a big upset in this game.
Absolutely, Coop. It is going to be Woodstock against the world on Friday night, and we certainly do wish Coach Devine and all of the Woodstock Wolverines a safe trip. But let's talk about the football game. We got Coach Devine's thoughts on it. I want to start with you, Coop. What are you looking for from Woodstock on Friday night?
Yeah, I think this is a game where you have to rely on the talent because Thomas County Central has plenty of it themselves. So I'm looking at, first of all, Graham Burmeister. This is his second playoff start. He started against Milton last year. He's not going to be unfamiliar or probably intimidated by this since he's already experienced what it's like to go on the road against a power program. And I think Trace Washington is really kind of the dynamic player that they're going to have to call on 20, 30 times in this game, and offensively and defensively, by the way. He's going to be just as effective as a linebacker as he needs to be as a running back in the pass catching game and in the running game. I think Trace Washington is a 3-star, which if we were before the transfer portal, we would be talking about a guy that's a 4-star talent. So I think that he is a great equalizer for Woodstock, and I think we've seen that throughout the year in some of their wins. I think he's going to have to be that. The offensive line is going to have to play a really clean game. They're going to be undersized compared to TCC. That doesn't always mean what you think it means when it comes to the playoffs. We've seen undersized offensive line win at the point of attack. It's really about the mentality. That's going to have to happen. And then I think the key to this is really their secondary. Woodstock has had a pretty impressive secondary since Coach Devine has been at Woodstock. Those guys are going to have to come back out and play their best game because they're going to go up against a couple of receivers that are a little bit better than they have seen probably all year, maybe comparable to what they've lined up against in the Jordan Edmonds type at Sprayberry, but they're going to have a lot of talent that's going to be across the field. So Woodstock's going to get stretched. Again, it's going to take a big effort, but I do think that if you rely on the talent that is a known commodity, that they should be able to keep this game close. And I think if you keep this game close in the fourth quarter, Thomas County Central is not used to playing close games. You could see them panic a little bit if things are closer than what they expected with a 4th seed coming into town.
Yeah, Coop, you talk about some of their talent in Thomas County Central. You talk about their receivers, Rodney Dunbar, J.B. Watkins, the two that stand out, 32, 31 receptions apiece. Dunbar, 511 yards, 7 touchdowns, and Watkins, 495 yards and 9 touchdowns. But I think the kind of the X factor for this Thomas County Central team is Christian Lawrence. He's a running back. He's also a pass catching threat with 17 catches for 353 yards. So he not only is he catching it, he's doing something with it, and 7 touchdowns. And you kind of expect these kind of numbers from a team that is put up that is averaging as many points as they're averaging, 52 points a game. So through 10 games, 520 points. If they keep this pace up, that will be the most in school history. We talked about the Christian Lawrence, the versatile running back. He leads the team in rushing with 1,195 yards and 17 TDs. But I think, again, with Thomas County Central, we can talk about the offensive production. Equally as impressive, or maybe even more impressive, is their defense, which is allowing, I believe, it's right around 7.2, 7.3 points a game, 4 shutouts. Isaiah Andrews has 8 sacks, leads the team with 12 tackles for loss. Jacoby Herring, Amari Stevenson, those kind of guys really solidify that front 7 for the Jackets. And I think you mentioned Trace Washington. I think that the issue in this game is Jimmy's and Joe's. Like, Woodstock probably needs about 4 or 5 Trace Washingtons to match up with the Jimmy's and Joe's that Thomas County Central has. And it's not just one, it's all over the board. And I think that might be the difference. I think Woodstock can stick around early. And like you said, if they can find a way to stay in the game, run the football effectively with Xavier Mercy and Trace Washington, get a turnover. And even then, I think they'll have to play flawless. But I think that's the recipe to win this ball game. I don't think you're going to go out there and gunsling it and beat Thomas County Central. It's going to have to be disciplined football. And at the end of the day, a lot of times in these games, it's the teams that can run the football, execute, and has more Jimmys and Joes. And again, we're not talking about a fly-by-night coach at Thomas County Central either. They've won a state title recently, and they're used to. This is something that this group of Jackets is used to playing in big games. Really torched a region down there that we thought was one of the best regions in the state. Maybe outside of Region 7, and certainly can throw Region 6 in there as well. But I just think this is going to be a tough row to hoe for the Wolverines. And you mentioned it. They've got to go all the way down to Thomasville, which is very close to that Florida-Georgia line. So it is a long bus trip. And I just think that there will be unfriendly confines down there at the Nest. And I just don't see a path to victory for Woodstock, all things being equal.
Yeah, it would take a Herculean effort, and Cooper Predictor bears that out a little bit. Thomas County Central would be a 50-plus point favorite in this matchup. So again, it's going to take everything Woodstock's got and probably then some. As I like to say in the stats world, there's a non-zero chance that Woodstock has. So that just means that it's not zero.
And as I like to say it, it's possible, but not probable.
Not,
And if I had to put a line on it, I think it's Thomas County Central by, I would say, 4 touchdowns, maybe somewhere in between that 28-32 point. That's where I would favor them as this week.
Yeah, I don't think that's far off at all. I think Woodstock's going to give a better effort than maybe what they have. Again, the predictors and that's any predictor you look at, Maxwell ratings, my ratings, any of them are going to look at the season as a whole and kind of bear that out. But I think with the bye week, we're going to see a really across the state. I think we'll see a little bit different outcomes than maybe we expected because you're going to be able to put some of those things that ailed you away with the free week that you were able to improve on yourself.
Absolutely, Coop. Well, those are our thoughts on Woodstock TCC. As again, Woodstock snake bitten by the draw once again, having to face a favorite for the 5A state championship. But they have to play the game. They don't play it on paper, Coop. They play it on the field, and Thomas County Central is going to have to earn it. And we certainly are pulling for the Woodstock Wolverines on Friday night to not only shock us, but shock the world. Let's move on, Coop. The Creekview Grizzlies, a team that going into that last week of the football season, they were in a position to host a home playoff game, potentially win a region title. And we already talked about it last week. They fell short against Sequoyah. They'll be on the road, not going as far as Woodstock, but certainly down to Warner Robins, which is a road trip for sure this time of year. So, what are your thoughts on Creekview and how their season ended up? And before we get to Coach Williams, who we've got on hold here, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. It comes back again. Looking at that Sequoyah game, we reviewed that last week with Dave on the podcast. Don't want to rehash that too much for the Grizzlies. I think the key to this is they have to realize that, when we basically have a team that played 8 playoff teams if you're using the power rankings. And I'll ask Coach Williams about this because North Forsyth makes it. Calhoun obviously makes it, but even when you get in the region, Lassiter would make it. River Ridge would even be seated higher than Creekview would be if we use the new system. Now, that's going to upset some Creekview fans, and rightfully so. I'm not passing judgment on that, but either way, what I would say with all of that is to remember is that you're playing a team that isn't outclassing who you've already played that much at all. So, in the games that they lost, when you look at the loss to Sprayberry, to Sequoyah, those were margin of error victories for the opponents, right? I mean, again, for the 5th time, Sprayberry won because the officials in partnership with Sprayberry defeated Creekview in overtime. And also Sequoyah being Sequoyah, they looked much more impressed and really improved over the last 3 weeks. So I think for Creekview, the key is to remember who you were the last 5 weeks that you've been playing football and not so much the 5 weeks beforehand. But I think Creekview's going to have to find a passing game somewhere in here. That's really been the one Achilles heel that they've had, and they've had some success against lower teams. Pope, Riverwood, they've had some success throwing the football. They're going to have to find a way because if Houston County gets in and knows they're going to stack the box with 8 guys, if they just leave one high safety, that's going to be a really tough team to run the football against. And I don't know that Creekview is going to be able to do that. So I think Creekview has probably the best chance out of our Cherokee County teams that are lower seeded to upset a team that's a higher seed than them. But man, it's going to take them to find something over the last 2 weeks that they've been preparing for this, something that they really haven't found consistently against higher level opponents all year.
Well, Coop, that's great analysis. Now we want to get to the head man over on Owen Store Road. We've got Coach Williams. We've had him holding. Let's go to the phones right now.
And joining us now on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast, the head coach for the Creekview Grizzlies, Coach Trevor Williams. Coach, thank you for being back with us.
Thanks as always for having me, guys.
Absolutely, Coach. We always look forward to it, especially this time of year with the playoffs coming around. I want to go back a little bit. You had a bye week last week coming off of the emotional game against Sequoyah. How has the bye week served you guys, and how have you seen your team prepared this week as you guys will get ready to face Houston this upcoming week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I, I don't love the first round bye week after the regular season, but I think after the two physical games with River Ridge and Sequoyah back to back, I think it helped us overall. I would much rather see maybe the bye week come later in the playoffs, if at all, maybe a Thanksgiving week, maybe a semifinals week. But for us, after those two games, as physical as they were, I think it helped us kind of get our legs back up underneath us and had 2 good weeks of practice.
Coach, you're coming off of a season where you started. We know how the start went, and nobody cares how you start. They just remember how you finish. And you guys finished strong in the month of October. That game against Sequoyah, where it was such an emotional game, just calling it, just seeing Sequoyah go up, you guys making a stop at the goal line, coming out, taking a lead, and Sequoyah getting it back, and just momentum going back and forth. How do you get your guys to refocus to now take on a team in Houston County that I'm not sure what the best comparison is on your schedule so far this season, but how do you get, I guess initially, how do you get them to say, okay, that game 10 is over, we have to move on and refocus?
Yeah, fortunately, they've kind of had that message for 10 weeks, right? Whether it was a win or a loss, it was like, okay, come Monday, let's come back to work. Obviously, chance at a home playoff game, an outside chance at a region title, all those things that were on the line made it an emotional game on top of the rivalry. You're right in at 17-14 to start the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter kind of gets away from us with a couple turnovers, and credit to them, they took advantage of it. But as our guys have done all season, and the leadership that we have, they came back ready to work and ready to get better, and they're excited for the opportunity, right? I think if you had asked the outside pundits and other people outside of our organization to start the year if we'd be in this position, I don't know how many of them would have said we would. But luckily, our guys don't listen to a whole bunch of that. They just focus on what they can do and how they can get better. And here we are with obviously a great opponent. Houston is very talented, very well coached, but it's a great opportunity for our guys.
Coach, when we look at your schedule and you kind of compare it to the PSR, the new format that'll be coming next year, I believe by my count, you guys ended up playing 8 playoff teams that would have made it through that kind of selection process. So with that, is that something that you take into the meeting with the players and say, hey guys, look, as difficult as it may be this upcoming week, we've already kind of weathered the storm. We beat a River Ridge team, we beat Lassiter, obviously went neck to neck with Sprayberry. Is that something that helps, or is that something that you kind of just try to put out of your mind and just focus more on what's coming up this week and just take it individually?
No, definitely. I think, when you look at our schedule, obviously with I think you said 8 playoff teams, but 4 teams that are ranked in the top 50 in the state of Georgia on max preps and all those things. So there should be no surprises, right? Their box on defense is extremely physical. You compare it to a Calhoun and a Sprayberry. Obviously, offensively, very explosive. Sprayberry's athletes and those things. Now, they're kind of a combination. Very, very talented, very well coached, very explosive. But you hope that it has prepared them for the speed, for the physicality, and the challenge that lies ahead. And that's why you set up a non-region schedule like that. And obviously, I think our region, from the outside looking in, people may not give it the credit that it deserves. But man, when you really dig into it, it's as tough a region as anywhere in the state of Georgia.
Coach, your last 3 playoff games, I feel like you faced giants. Going back to Carrollton, and I'm going to get the year wrong, but I want to say that was 2020, 2021, 23. Facing Blessed Trinity, which is not a long road trip, but that was a very physical football team that made a run. And now Houston County. How do you avoid these juggernauts here in the first round? And is this why you're a proponent of changing the ranking system or how the playoff is determined?
you're not going to avoid good football teams, right? That's why it's the playoffs. That's why it's November. The key is go win the region. The key is come in second in the region and host a playoff game. But again, I'm still unsure on the playoff ranking system. To be real honest with you, head to head evidently has no bearing on that, right? Wins are wins, losses are losses, obviously home and away and those types of things. You have a little bit of control on opponents' win percentage, or at least you try to schedule good teams, all those things. You have zero control on your opponent's winning percentage. So it highlights wins early in the season. It highlights non-region wins. I think if you look at the PSR from this year, or the formula they put out, Lassiter would have got in under this model, and they were able to win their non-region games early, right? So, to me, what happens on the field should trump everything else, whether it's head-to-head, whether it's in the region, whatever it is, you control that part of what's put on your schedule, the non-region stuff being what it is, and you try to do the best you can with that. But you're at the mercy of who will play you in non-region games a lot of times. Ultimately, I do think it is a benefit because you don't have, this region versus that region or whatever. But I think there's got to be some tweaks and changes. I think they've got some first round games that already played in the regular season. I think that's got to be some things they talk about. I think head to head has to weigh in your region and those types of things. But overall, again, that's out of our control. We're going to make the best schedule we can and try to win the games on the field and move forward on that end.
Well, Coach, it kind of leads into this week. You guys will take the trip down to Middle Georgia, take on Houston County. Not super unfamiliar for Creekview historically. They've made some trips down south of Atlanta in the playoffs. But for this team in particular, what's it going to take for you guys to be successful come Friday? And what are your keys to victory there?
Yeah, it stays consistent for us. Can you run the football? Can you stop the run? Obviously, defensively limiting explosive plays. They've got 2 running backs that can fly. They've got 2 or 3 wide receivers that can really go. They're big up front, and then defensively, super physical in the box. They've got a really good safety committed to Georgia. So for us, it's can you run the football? Can you establish the line of scrimmage? Can you hopefully chew some clock and limit possessions for them and take advantage of some opportunities if you get them? But for us, the formula doesn't change, and especially as you turn the calendar in November, typically teams that are able to run the football have some success. So,
Coach, you're right about that. As much as the air raid has come along to win the playoffs in Georgia, especially, you better be able to run it. And we know that your team has had success doing that, and you guys will certainly. You guys will be up to the challenge here on Friday night. I say short bus trip comparatively to maybe a couple other teams, but down to Middle Georgia, so not necessarily South Georgia. Coach, we wish you the best of luck, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the air again. We look forward to talking to you next week after you guys shock the world.
I'll take it. I'm in.
Look, I was one of those pundits. I didn't think you guys would be in this position, and especially the position you were in Friday night. So I'll go ahead and eat my crow, as I have so often done this season. But job well done for you, Coach Williams, to this point, and we know that your work is not done. So again, best of luck the rest of this week, and safe travels down to Warner Robins, and bring us back another Cherokee County playoff victory.
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys.
So thank you to Coach Williams for being with us on the podcast once again, getting the playoff beard in action. I don't know if you picked up on that, Art.
Hey, no shave November, Coop. That's what's going on, I think.
Hey, there you go. I like it. Weather drops, you leave it a little longer. Nothing
you
wrong with
that face warm. Look, we've been sub freezing temperatures here the last couple of days, Coop. At least the lows have been. So it's a good fit for Coach Williams. It looks good on him.
There you go. So sets them up again with, Houston County. Art, I kind of broke it down a little bit on my opinions of it, my friend. What are you taking away from what Coach Williams said, and also any breakdown that you have on this game?
Yeah, I think Coach Williams knows that what the expectation is at Creekview. I think he set that out. He didn't say this verbatim, but he said, hey, I tried to set him up and tee him up for, hey, man, you've had a rough draw the last 3 times you've been in the playoffs. And he's like, or we can just win a couple games. And so, that I think that speaks to the standard, not necessarily a certain, game or, hey, we didn't get the job done. I think what he wants the standard to be is, hey, host a home playoff game. Let's get a more favorable matchup. So that's what I took out of that. I think he's also done a fantastic job of getting his team to refocus. And even his comment, he said, hey, we've had to do this, get over a loss quickly over and over and over and over again this season. 3 of them consecutively to start the season. And then even you want to talk about 2 emotional losses, Coop. The loss to Sprayberry in that overtime game, and you and everybody else wearing blue and green or any association outside of me is going to tell me that the referees screwed Creekview. And maybe they did. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I just it's like the only time that I've heard the fans at Owen Store this season were to complain about the Creekview game, the Sprayberry game, and last week, 2 weeks ago at Sequoyah. So that's my dig at Creekview fans this week. But again, you have to find a way to win those games. That's just the bottom line. I think Coach Williams was alluding to that. But going back to getting your team back to refocus, I realized the game after that, the team they had to play was Pope. But Pope came out, took the ball down the field, scored early. Creekview had to bounce back from that. And so this a similar situation, very emotional game on Friday night, two Friday nights ago, excuse me. And now Creekview has to find a way to put that to bed and recover. And I think Coach Williams and his staff have done a great job this season of doing that. I don't think they'll be intimidated by the moment. However, I'm looking at the Houston County Bears, Coop. There has been a power shift in Warner Robins, Georgia. For years, it has been the Northside Warner Robins Eagles with Coach Conrad Nix, old head coach down there. And then the Warner Robins Red Devils have been, a powerhouse and have won a few state titles. But this year, and really not this year, but over the last several years, it's been Houston County. And Coach Jeremy Edwards, in his last 4 seasons, he's got the Bears. They're winning a minimum of 8 games in those last 4 seasons and advanced to the quarterfinals twice and the second round once, Coop. So this is a team that is really getting after it in terms of their win. So the power structure has shifted over to the Houston County Bears. This is they're tied for their best record in school history. 9, at least to this point, 9 regular season wins. They haven't gone undefeated yet, but they have got to the 9-win mark before. They got to it again this season. Their only loss to Thomas County Central, who we just talked about with Woodstock. You got to believe that this is a team that comes fired up. They get it done both ways. They're averaging 208 yards a game through the air, 183 yards a game on the ground. Ryan Maxwell is thrown for 2,069 yards. Colin Anderson has rushed for 1,022. Austin Stinson, who was supposed to be the guy coming into this year, has also added 481 yards and 4 touchdowns. So it's a team that really gets it done and is versatile on offense. Defensively, they're allowing about 19 points a game. They've got 1 shutout on the season over the aforementioned Northside Warner Robins Demons. They've got a couple of linebackers that I think could give Creekview some issues. They are Weston Ard and Jace Jordan, and they are both built about the same, 6'2", 230, really fly around the ball. Their defense is designed for those guys to make plays, and they've been making them, Coop, and I think that's going to be an issue. Creekview is going to have to find a way to neutralize Ard and Jordan if they want to have any chance of testing this Houston County front 7.
I agree with you. It's a loaded team in Houston, and they have developed themselves as a program that expects to win. Our predictor would put this line at 44 in favor of Houston for the Cooper predictor. So again, another long-reaching spread to cover for a Cherokee County team. But with that being said, I do feel like Creekview has the opportunity with their style of play to shorten the game, keep Houston from scoring as much as they normally do, and hopefully keep Creekview in the game. And it's kind of the same message that we had to Woodstock, right? It's you got to find a way to force a couple of errors that they normally don't commit week to week. And if you're able to do that, then you're right back in this football game. And I think that's going to be the key for Creekview on this one.
Yeah, we talked about the quarterback, Maxwell. Coop, he's completing 65% of his passes, but he's thrown 8 interceptions on the year. So guys like J.D. Russell, Hayden Hanson, Mason Munn, those guys will have to look for chances to be opportunistic in their coverage when Houston throws the ball down the field, because they're going to put it up in the air, and they're going to live or die with some of those interceptions. So it'll be interesting to see if Creekview can turn them over, if they can control the ground game. And I think a game like they just came off of, the Sequoyah game, is a really good tune-up prep, if we can say that, for a team like Houston County, where, okay, we know what we have to do. I don't necessarily think that Houston's running back, Colin Anderson, is as good as Will Rajecki, but if you throw in their other back, Austin Stinson, then you might have a 1-2 punch that's going to be a little more difficult for Creekview to control. But again, if they can find a way to run the football, pop in some timely passes, I think they'll be around in the fourth quarter. But I think Houston County, again, kind of like Thomas County Central, too many Jimmies and Joes when you look across the board. And I think Houston wins this one. Coop, I'm going to call it Bears by 21, 3 touchdowns.
All right, well, there you go. That's second game done. That leads us to our region champ that we have. That is the Sequoyah Chiefs, coming off of that win against Creekview that we just mentioned, and they will host Coffee, who's not an unfamiliar opponent for the Chiefs.
Yeah, not an unfamiliar opponent at all, Coop. This is a Coffee team that came into Hickory Flat the day after Thanksgiving last year on a brutally cold Friday night. And I feel like everybody from Douglas, Georgia, made the trip up to Hickory Flat, and absolutely Tyrese Woodgett and KJ DeBruce absolutely put on a show. The Coffee defense was flying all over the place. It was a fantastic game, at least for a commentator, a radio guy to call. However, Sequoyah came out on the short end of the stick, 72-48, and that's right, that wasn't a misprint. 72-48. Woodgett set the state record for rushing that night, if I'm not mistaken, which has since been broken. I believe West Lawrence's running back has since broken that record. But the good news is Tyrese Woodgett has moved on. He's at GMC now, and I think even Dave mentioned he's probably not going to be at GMC for long. And junior college is we saw his explosiveness last year. KJ DeBruce is back. And they've also got another running back, just a sophomore, Coop, and it's going to be interesting to see how they handle Bobby Reynolds, who in the last 2 games has really showed out in DeBruce's absence. But enough about me talking about it. We've got Coach Teter. He's going to tell us about his Chiefs and the matchup they have this week against the Coffee Trojans.
And joining us on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast, the head coach for the Sequoyah Chiefs, Coach James Teter. Coach, thank you for being back with us.
Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Coach. We always look forward to it, especially as we get into playoff time. We got to talk to you last week. We more kind of looked back at the season as a whole. Obviously, this week it starts all anew. But you had the bye week, and then you're prepping this week. How do you feel like the team's been looking so far through these 2 weeks of preparation? Is the team where you want them to be, a little bit more amped up because they're playing Coffee? What's your takeaway from this week of preparation so far?
I thought we've had 2 really good weeks. Kids have come out, been excited. We gave them a couple of days off last week to kind of rest and relax at the beginning and the end of the week, and then went back to it yesterday, which was fun out in the cold and the snow. But it was good just to get back on the field with our kids. But I thought we've had really a couple of really good weeks. Are they excited? Yes. I don't think if it wasn't Coffee, they would still be excited about it. So, but just because of the situation from last year, I think that adds a little bit to it. But for the most part, it wouldn't matter who it was. We're just glad to be in again and have a chance to try to make a run.
Coach, is there anything that changes in your preparation for the playoffs, especially with the extra week? I know you talked about giving them a days off, but anything in your practice schedule once you get to game week that changes?
Not really. I mean, you've seen so much film and you've watched so much stuff that I don't think we need to change anything. To me, sometimes too much time can be a little bad for you offensively because you start tinkering with too many things. But no, we haven't changed anything. We keep everything as pretty much as basic as we can. The same thing last week. We normally practice on Wednesday mornings. We did. The only thing we changed last week was we went Thursday morning because we had to help out flag. But for this week, it's still the same as always. We treat it just like any other week and any other game we've played.
Coach, when we talked to you at the beginning of the year, we talked about how many seniors were coming back. We were talking about how you guys were able to add some things on offense and build on that. Not to give anything away, not that I think anybody from Coffee listens to us, but is that something that you guys have continued to build on through the bye week, or is that something that the playbook's kind of set and it's just the minor adjustments to prepare for the opponent week, or are you kind of adding plays?
We don't add plays as much as we may add wrinkles to what we already have. We kind of do that week to week based on what we see they're going to do. We put the base playbook in early. Again, I say this pretty much every week, but having Colby has helped because we talk a lot to our backup quarterbacks about Colby, how he's grown up in this offense, and because he knows this stuff so well, we can add things and he can check things very easily. Our stuff tends to get real wordy at times, and for him to be able to keep up with some of it and do it, it's been pretty awesome to watch just because of who it is. But yeah, we add and change things kind of weekly, but it's more just adding tags to things and kind of way we may tweak away. We block it a little bit, but we're not going to get too crazy and add too many things because I think that's what the 2 weeks may be bad about is you could add too many things and get your kids confused instead of playing fast.
Coach, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, how your team has a chance in this rematch of the quarterfinals last season. How much does that play into dare I say, motivation? I'll give you a sneak peek. I was writing my preview when I said, hey, I think these coaches will downplay the rematch. But is that something you downplay, or is that something that you allow the kids to at least get a little bit of, hey, this is a big game because they're coming back to our house and we owe them something?
I think a little bit of both. We downplay it some just because I don't want them to get too nervous about things. But we did talk about today because today was a good practice, but I don't think it was a practice we expect to have to play a first round playoff game. I mean, it wasn't overly bad, but it wasn't good enough. That the opponent you're getting ready to face has been here before, and they're coming in here with an extremely large amount of confidence because they beat you, and they beat you pretty bad last year. And they're not coming up here to expect to lose. So we kind of go from both angles of it, and it goes from day to day. And there'll be some time this week where I'll give them a little bit of story about a team who went to Lanier a few years ago and wasn't supposed to win and did, and beat a number 1 seed. So just to keep them to understanding that no matter this time of year, whoever you're playing, they're pretty good or they wouldn't be here.
Coach, you guys have played a lot of different teams. When we kind of look back even at the beginning part of the year, we see Denmark in a bracket, Kell in a bracket. These are teams that you guys handled throughout the year. Is there a team that you feel like is comparable to Coffee that you've played in style and in personnel, or is this a unique challenge for you going into game number 11?
I think partially it's unique just because, again, everybody talks about the South Georgia teams, and they're a little bit different down there, and kids play a little different. But we really think, and not to give too many compliments to the school up the street, but some of the way Creekview plays some things has helped us a little bit. Now, we've changed some things, too, that we didn't do last year up to this point. The first 2 rounds of the playoffs and maybe the last 2 opponents last year were a little bit more throwing the ball. And so we practice so much pass, and then you come into Coffee who doesn't throw it all and runs it a ton. So weeks ago, to prepare for what may come down the road, we started working a little bit more on the run and those things to help with that. But really, some of the things Creekview does defensively and some of the ways they fly around on, and do some things has helped and get us to see some things. They run some similar sets of time that Coffee does. And so I think that's helped. And again, don't give too much credit to the school up the street, but I think they're probably the most that's helped us a little bit.
I was just going to ask Coach Teter, this wasn't my original question, but I assume you're not going to send Coach Williams a thank you or a Christmas card or a gift certificate to Chick-fil-A if you guys come out victorious on Friday night. Is that not the case?
I'll send everybody a Christmas card.
My real question was, I want to get down to the game at hand. I think we danced around a little bit. For those that don't know, should know, we won't rehash it, but Coffee came up here, quarterfinals in a freezing cold game. Seemed like the whole town of Douglas showed up here in Hickory Flat, and for the fans, it was exciting. For you guys, or on the short end of the stick, I know you have a lot, maybe some redemption here. Coach, they don't have They return KJ DeBruce. He's missed the last 2 games. They don't have Tyrese Woodgate, but they've got a sophomore running back in Bobby Reynolds, who's been fantastic. What concerns you about this Coffee Trojans team and Coach Mike Coe, who, by the way, has won several state titles in the state of Florida at Madison for the Cowboys, and has also got Coffee rocking and rolling here the last few years?
Now, there's a lot of things that concern you when you watch film on them. They're missing some pieces from last year, but they're still just as good as they were a year ago. They've got great size on both sides of the ball. Even though they don't have the running back from last year, they have the other guy that scored the other 2 touchdowns. He's back, and so he's had a good year. They're healthy. We got coaches on our staff who are friends with some of those people, so they're completely healthy. But there's a lot. I mean, they do things still as good as they did a year ago, and they're well coached. And we'll have to play really well. And that's what we keep trying to tell our kids. And we got to make sure, from a defense standpoint, our fits are correct, and we can't let them, score 1-play drives. We did some things offensively last year, and you score 48 points, and you think you would have won a game if you hadn't watched it. But we've got to be able to do some things defensively to slow them down and make them work for points. Even though we didn't have success last year defensively against them, there are times that we felt offensively, even though we scored 48 points, we didn't do our part to help. We have a drive where we enter in a field goal. So there's 4 points where you were now behind, and then come out the first 2 drives the second half and we get stopped. And there's 2 more times now we're down. It's just not what our offense does. So to answer your question, just from the speed standpoint and the size standpoint, there's a lot of things that can worry you, but I think Brent's got a great plan defensively, and I think Coach Jack has done a good job this week to kind of take advantage of some of the things they do, and hopefully the things we do formationally and things will help our kids be able to have some success in what we're doing.
Coach, just want to get, if we can, one last question. Game time, is that 7:00 or 7:30 on Friday night? 7:30. So standard GHSA kickoff in Hickory Flat. If you can make it out, if you're in the area, I strongly encourage you to come see the Sequoyah Chiefs if you haven't seen them this season. It's been a special year in Hickory Flat. We've been over all the accolades, Coach. We won't go over them again, but we do congratulate you on the success that you all have had thus far, and certainly wish you the best of luck. And you guys might not mention payback, and I know that some of your team will listen to this, but I'm just going to go on the record and say what was my number here? Sequoyah by 16. I know that's I know you're not used to hearing me say that, Coach Teter, in a big game, but I'm saying it tonight, and I finally believe in Brent Buddy. I believe his defense is going to show up. Big night for Noah Normile. That's my prediction on Friday night.
It's took a lot of years for you to say that about Brent Buddy, hasn't it?
I'm a slow learner, Coach Teter. I'm a slow learner.
If you said Sequoyah by 1, I'd be happy right now.
Hey, don't make a liar out of me. How about that? We'll take a 1-point win. We'll take a 50-point win. Don't matter.
Yeah, you got it.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us again. 7:30 kickoff at Hickory Flat, Skip Pope Stadium. Be there, be loud, be proud. Coffee's going to be bringing I think they're out of school or half day school Friday. Yeah, they're out of school, so they're going to be bringing the buses up from Douglas. So, hey, Hickory Flat, show up, show out. And, Coach, we look forward to talking to you next week. I'm going to put it out in the air anyway for round 2.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So thank you to Coach Teter for being back with us once again. As we mentioned, we go through streaks, it seems. We're back to the James Teter show. We wouldn't miss having him on for the 3rd week in a row. But no, appreciate him taking the time to be with us, and obviously a big game coming up this week. Art, anything that he said that stood out to you there?
I'm shocked he didn't tell me that Brent Buddy was in the witness protection program and couldn't speak to us on game week. But I understand. Yeah, after Coach Buddy's defense, struggled last year in the quarterfinals, he needs to be in the war room getting ready. But no, I say that tongue in cheek because I know Coach Buddy will be listening. He'll blow me up about that, putting him on blast. So there's my shot over the bow here. Coop, I think what's interesting to me is how much a coach or where a coach decides to use this whole revenge factor. And a lot of times you don't get an opportunity to replay a matchup. I know if you look at the records, Coffee is 4-6, but I don't think you can look at that as a typical 4-6 team. I personally believe they play in the toughest region in the state. I think They've got a burgeoning star in Reynolds at running back. If and Coach Teter said, "Hey, we think DeBruce will be able to play, and they're fully, they're healthy." So they've got a great 1-2 punch back there. They're probably not going to throw the ball a whole lot, and this is an experienced coaching staff. So I think Coach Teter, that revenge factor does play into it. But at the end of the day, it's X's and O's and lining up and winning it one play at a time. And I just think that the amount of experience on this Sequoyah team uh, lends itself to their advantage. And also, you've got a a healthy, what we believe is a very healthy Sequoyah team. So have had 2 weeks to prepare. We feel like that's been an advantage for Sequoyah this season when they can prepare, and the moment's not going to be too big. We thought, early on to begin the season, we thought Denmark, oh my gosh, that's going to be an issue. Hey, Denmark finished number 2 team in their in Region 6 in Class 6A. Sequoyah stumbled against them a little early, was able to win that ball game. They beat Kell, who won their region in Class 4A and is now a team that we expect to make a run at least to the Elite 8. They dominated Sprayberry. So this is a Sequoyah team, I think, when they're firing on all cylinders, they can really get it done. I felt like they may have fallen asleep a little bit last time out against Creekview, but they were able to overcome that. Can they put together an entire game this week is my question. And from start to finish, dominate both sides of the football. If they can do that, if they can fit the run, and Coach Teter mentioned that, I think Sequoyah will find some success, a lot of success on Friday night.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cooper Predictor puts this line. It would be Sequoyah minus 34.5. That is no home field advantage. That's just straight up. And the one thing I would add on with that is that this is a team in Sequoyah that we saw dominate Kell, dominate Sprayberry. They've handled their business against playoff teams that they faced this year. The one hiccup to River Ridge at this point in the season almost looks like kind of any given Friday type answer that you can give to it, because outside of that, it's been pretty brutal for anybody who has to face Sequoyah. So I think they're set up in a good position. I take the Chiefs here again. 35 is what I'll say. I think it's probably a little bit closer than that, but I'll stick with the math on it and say that we'll go 35 and a big win for Sequoyah to set up a pretty favorable second round for them as well.
I tell you what, I think they probably have one of the toughest first round matchups for a number 1 seed, in my opinion, with Coffee coming up. Just not only based on the tradition of that program, but also just who they're bringing with them on the bus. I've already revealed my pick. It's Sequoyah by 16. I do think Coach Buddy gets it done. I think Coach Jackman gets it done, and the Chiefs move on. I don't think it's easy. And at this point, every team is good. Even Coach Williams said that. But I will say, I'll be interested to see if Coach Williams does get that Christmas card from Coach Teter if they win this ball game this weekend.
There you go. Absolutely. One last point on that I want to make is that Coffee, to me, the reason that I feel a little bit more confident is that they don't really have a backup plan. If the run doesn't work for them, that's pretty much it. They have to live and die by that. So I feel like if Sequoyah just dedicates themselves to stopping that run, which I trust that defense is capable of, based on what we've seen again against their game against Creekview, there's really not option number 2 to go to. They can't, they're not going to be able to throw the ball 20 times and win. So I feel like Sequoyah has an advantage there, and I feel pretty strongly about the Chiefs pulling out a win in this one.
Well, we'll see, Coop. Last season, Coffee regular season was 8-2 entering the playoffs and got a big win over Jackson County, 31-7. Then went on at Jackson County, went on the road last year, got a 31-7 win, and then went on the road 3 straight weeks. So at Jackson County, at Brunswick, and then of course at Sequoyah before they finally fell in their 4th consecutive road game. So not a stranger to being road warriors are the Coffee Trojans. So Chiefs fans, maybe that's a call to show up and be loud and be proud. Like we said, Douglas is going to be here. Will Hickory Flat be here?
I expect they will, but hopefully so.
Absolutely. Well, Coop, that wraps up our county games. The only other team that we have a little bit of interest in are the Sprayberry Yellow Jackets. I'm not going to go into too much detail in previewing that ball game here on our podcast, but a great matchup with Lee County coming up to East Cobb. and I don't know if you've done a whole lot of research on it, but just spitballing here, what do you expect? What does Sprayberry have to do to beat Lee?
Yeah, I think this is a game that is really it's a heck of a ball game for round one. I mean, this is what GHSA was dreaming of when they did the power ranking thing, and here it is in the old format. I think this is talent versus talent. I do give the edge to Sprayberry ever so slightly in terms of just their overall talent. Lee County, I don't expect to be able to throw the football very well against this very talented Sprayberry secondary. I think Lee County can run the football more effectively than Sprayberry can. I think at the end of the day, Sprayberry is going to rely on their playmakers and Jordan Edmonds to make up for that difference. Again, 5-star corner committed to the Tide. I think that he's going to be kind of the game breaker for them. I think he gets loose a couple of times. So I'll say that and say Sprayberry wins this by a field goal.
Interesting touch. Of course, Lee County losing their last time out by 6 to Houston, which is the reason why they will be on the road this week. Still a top 10 team in the state of Georgia. Again, we mentioned Thomas County Central ranked 1 or 2, depending on what poll you're looking at. Houston County ranked in the top 10 along with Lee County. So a very interesting matchup. I'm not going to digress from much of what you said. I think Sprayberry is a team that's going to try to out-physical Lee, and I think Lee is a team that's been physical for the most part. They're missing a little bit of the star power this season, but I'd be cautious to bet against Coach Dean Fabrizio. He's been up here to the Cherokee County area, North Georgia area a couple of times and has walked away with some victories. Lee County is a program that has found a way over the last 12, 13 years to really make a name for themselves and start winning, competing at a high level and making deep runs, including some state championships. So I'm going opposite. I think the Trojans have – actually, that's not true. I don't believe that. I do believe that Sprayberry does have the edge. I think this is not as talented of a team that we've seen historically in Lee County. I do think it's a good old-fashioned slobber knocker, and I like Sprayberry with Jaden Duckett making some kind of miraculous play to save the day and beat Lee County again in overtime by 1 point. And perhaps the officials will be on Sprayberry's side and they'll get a couple of fortunate calls and Creekview can say, see, I told you so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that really depends who can slide the line judge a 50 quicker is probably the answer to that one. So it'll be a close game either way.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, let's move on. Coop, but we want to talk about our brackets. Before I jump into brackets, because I want to close with that, speaking of GHSA, they've released their new regions. And I think teams have an opportunity to appeal. I don't know how long that process is.
Till Sunday, and then they'll release that. So it'll be at next week. We would know what the appeals are. And I believe that meeting is on Monday or Tuesday for the hearing like they did for the classification hearing. So it should be pretty similar to last week.
So in Class 6A, which was now the Class 7A, nothing changes for our Class 7A teams. So again, North Cobb, Wheeler, Walton, North Paulding, Etowah, Cherokee, and I skipped over somebody.
North Paulding, North Cobb, Wheeler, Walton, Etowah, Cherokee. Wheeler, Walton, North Paulding, North Cobb. Etowah, Cherokee. Isn't that it?
That's 6 teams. For some reason, I thought there was a 7th. Marietta. How could we forget the Marietta Blue Devils, who have made their way into the state tournament in Class 6A. But anyway, in Class 5A, I know, or which is now Class 6A, which will be Class 6A next season. I know you're super excited to see the Rome Wolves back in the region, Coop. What are your thoughts on Rome?
Yeah, that's I would just be so interested to hear the decision-making process behind these regions alignment. So to your point, for anyone who's not familiar, we're essentially trading Riverwood out and picking up Rome in that slot, and we're trading Sprayberry out and picking up Kell in that slot. And then you have the 4 Cherokee County teams in partnership with Pope and also Lassiter would still be in that. So it's not that it gets much worse. I mean, it's not easier. That's for sure. I mean, Riverwood's obviously a drop down in competition compared to Rome, but it's not like a huge gain. Again, Sprayberry has dominated Cherokee County for the most part, so getting them out is a good thing, I would say. But picking up Rome's not fun. My only question is, so on the opposite side, Region 5 and 6A is Alexander, Chapel Hill, East Paulding, Hiram, New Manchester, Osborne, South Cobb, and South Paulding. And they said no to putting Rome in that region, even though it's closer for the most part. Now, I get, like South Cobb's not closer, which would make perfect sense for South Cobb to be in the region that is closer, which would be Region 6. But no, they put Rome in with us. So I don't fully understand the GHSA's love for putting Rome in with Cherokee County. I don't understand it from a travel perspective. When you have a region that it would make traveling sense to put them in, and they actively don't do it. And I just, I would love for nothing else than to see Rome appeal that decision and say, look, we fit in better with 5. South Cobb ought to go over to 6. But I don't really believe that's going to happen. So it's fine. We'll deal with it one way or the other. But obviously, Kell and Rome joining the bunch. Kell makes sense. I'm not mad about Kell. I get it. But Rome, I don't understand it.
You can trade out Milton for Rome. I mean, if you need another team, they're close to.
At least it makes more sense to me.
Geographically, right? Of course, Milton locked up in that region with Roswell. They're kind of married at the hip for the time being. So and we've seen the GHSA. You alluded to this. We've seen the GHSA move Rome from the Paulding County region over to the Cherokee County region. I've seen it in basketball for several years now. Every 2 years, they seem to bounce back and forth. And I can assure you, no basketball team or probably any other team likes to get on a bus and go to Rome on a Tuesday night for any kind of game. And it probably works the same way for Rome. I can't imagine outside of maybe Coach Reed and the football team that they really look forward to coming over to Cherokee County on a Tuesday night to play a basketball game and region play. And really at this point, down at Kell or down at Pope, which is a long way from home.
That's the part I don't understand, is that South Cobb would make so much more sense when you're anchoring that region around Kell, Pope, and Lassiter. South Cobb is relatively in that neighborhood, and you're basically saying to them, we would rather have Rome, who's got to drive through Paulding County to get down to these teams. They're not taking 20 down to 575. So I just don't understand the travel. I get that they wanted to average it around 8 teams a region, but why don't you slide? And South Cobb and Osborne, they probably want to be in the same region. But man, that's just such a weird decision to just forego Rome in that decision-making process. It's almost like they made Region 5 and then said, oh crap, Rome's out there in Floyd County. We got to figure out what to do with that. And then they're like, oh, we'll just stick them in with them. We did that a few years ago, and that worked out so well. Nobody complained about that at all. So,
and it is tough when Rome is kind of in Northwest Georgia. They're the largest high school. I mean, you can't,
right.
Perhaps if they were in the same, what would be awesome if it was Rome, Cartersville, and Dalton in a region where, and maybe even throw in Calhoun, right? That would be a great super region. You got some of the best. Maybe Rockmart wants a piece of that, and Cedartown some years will want a piece of that. But as the case may be, they're the biggest high school in Floyd County. The city schools they certainly are different. All the Floyd County schools are in much smaller classifications. But I think we'll continue to see this until either there's, I don't know, maybe new leadership in the GHSA, and even that, Dr. Hines is going, we have new leadership, and it's the same old, or to maybe what you want to do is get rid of region play.
Well, so I think the benefit of this is that if you look at what you're going to get from a strength of schedule perspective, if you are the Cherokee County teams, are you going to beat Rome and Kell? Maybe not. Just being honest, probably not. But what you are going to get is you're going to get a team in Cal and Rome that are really going to boost you up. Because one thing we know is that Rome, the city school, is going to pay plenty of schools to come play them. So they're going to get a very favorable team to come play them. And they're also a good get. If you're a team that's looking for that opponent winning percentage, Rome's a pretty good get in this region. Because if you look at it, Kel's probably the most competitive with Rome year in and year out. I know Sequoiah's been on a run, but they're graduating a lot at the end of this year, so I don't think it's going to be the Sequoyah that we're used to seeing, at least over the last 3 years. So that's probably a benefit where you can kind of look and say, okay, that's nice, but that's about it, man. I mean, and it doesn't help because it really just offsets what Lassiter and Pope are. I mean, Pope, unless they're just dramatically improved over this year, they're going to be a pretty rough to your PSR rating. And then if you're looking at Lassiter, they have been okay. Again, they would have been the 32nd team in by the standings this year in power rankings. But historically, and knowing what they are, and I think even Mitch Siemens graduating this year, who's really been the reason they've been pretty okay over the last couple of years, they're losing that. I don't know that Lassiter is going to go back to being a 3-7 team. So all that to say, if you're Cherokee County, who cares? Win the games you're supposed to win. Be competitive in the games that you're not. I get it. But again, I despise the fact that there is a city school lumped in with Cherokee County schools. I despise it. It doesn't make geographical sense. I would hate it if it was Milton and Roswell, but I would get it. I don't even understand it. And by the way, Kel does plenty of recruiting too. Just ask Creekview. So I'm not trying to say that Kel's innocent in this, but at least geographically it makes sense. That's why I'm off my high horse about Kel.
Shots fired to Coach Bobby May and the Kel Longhorns. Good grief! I mean, you everybody's catching strays tonight from you, Coop. So for you make a great point. I'll finish this and we'll get to the playoffs here. You make a great point on that strength of schedule. Certainly with a team like Kel and Rome, that certainly adds to your strength of schedule. And we'll see. I think you made a good point about Lassiter. We'll see how will they continue to grow without Seaman, or remember they have a freshman running back in the backfield for Lassiter, and then I think Pope, who has a junior quarterback and I think a freshman or sophomore running back. So a lot of young talent on these teams. You mentioned a lot of these Cherokee County teams graduating a lot of players. So we'll see what happens. A lot remains to be seen. But first, before we even get to that, let's talk playoff brackets. So we just want to go 6A, 5A tonight, since those are the two classifications that cover our Cherokee County teams. Coop, Class 6A, do you want to walk through every matchup here and put it on record here?
Yeah, we'll do it. I mean, basically how this will work is I'm going to send out my brackets on the Great Wide World Web so everybody can see what the predictor says. This is not my opinions. I don't care. I did all predictor because I'm wrong more than it is. But then you and I are also doing a competition, which we'll post the score of at the end of each round as well, in the standings. But we'll go ahead and put it on the record here. We'll do it quickly since we got 32 games to get through, and then we'll just kind of run through them for 6A and 5A since that's where the two county teams live in.
Absolutely, Coop. I'll have mine posted before Friday's first round game. But first up, we're going from top left all the way down, and then we'll head to top right. I've got Mill Creek and Grayson advancing, along with Harrison and Carrollton in that top right quadrant in the first round games in that one. Top left quadrant, excuse me.
Yep, same. We're all the same on those four.
Then on the bottom left-hand side of the bracket, I like Lowndes, North Gwinnett, Hillgrove, and West Forsyth.
Yep, with you on Hillgrove, upsetting North Paulding, so not looking great for Region 5 early.
All right, then we switch over to the top right side of the bracket. I like Denmark, McEachern, Brookwood over Archer, and then Valdosta to beat Decula.
Yeah, Brookwood, close game against Archer, but agree with you there, and Valdosta continuing to roll.
All right, finally, bottom right-hand corner of the bracket. I like Douglas County in a close game over Lambert. I like North Cobb, Newton over Peachtree Ridge, and the Buford Wolves.
Yeah, no surprises there. Same all the way through. North Cobb does make it. Pretty convincing win. I think the line on that would be 21.5.
All right, Coop, let's move along to the Quarterfinals, also known as the Elite Eight. I like Grayson matching up with Carrollton in that top left quadrant. I like Lowndes to face Hillgrove in that bottom left quadrant. What about you?
Yeah, agreed on Grayson and Carrollton in the top. I do have North Gwinnett beating Lowndes. They would be a 7.5-point favorite in that matchup. So North Gwinnett takes it. They will face the Hillgrove Hawks.
All right. So we both like Hillgrove to upset West for Forsyth. And then on the right side of the bracket, I like McEachern. I like Valdosta. I like Douglas County and a slobber knocker against North Cobb. And I like Beaufort over Newton.
So agreed all the way through, except for the Douglas County win. We do have North Cobb pulling that one out. It's a 1.5-point spread within the margin of error, but we'll give the edge to North Cobb.
All right. That makes my final four. I like Carrollton, Lowndes, Valdosta, and Beaufort.
Yeah, got Grayson, North Gwinnett. So our left side's completely different. And then we got McEachern over Valdosta and Buford representing. So we got a very different 6A bracket here.
Absolutely, Coop. And then to my final is Carrollton and Beaufort. And Beaufort, with the best stadium that money can buy, wins the state title, much to our chagrin of city schools. But I think the Wolves get it done.
Yeah, Buford, Grayson, who recruits more? Hard to say. Buford with more money probably does it, and they do pull out the win, buying those great seats, buying the great stadium, buying the great players. Buford's your champ. Grayson is the runner-up.
Oh, my goodness. Again, the city schools getting no love from us tonight. Coop, let's
They
move
never will.
on to the 5A bracket. And what we can do is we'll talk about in the other classifications, we'll just let people know who we feel like is going to be a state champ there. 5A first round, I like upset. Let's start it right off the top. Statesboro Blue Devils over Habersham Central. I like Woodward. I like Northgate, and I like TCC over Woodstock in that top left quadrant in Class 5A.
All agreed, except we're taking Habersham Central there. It's a real close game, but we do like Habcent.
All right, long road trip for Statesboro to make it up to Hab Central up there in the northeast Georgia mountains. Then in the bottom left-hand side, I've got Effingham County. I had to really had some hand-wringing going on there, but I like Effingham. I like Roswell. I like Noonan over New Manchester and a little bit of a upset, and then I like Sequoyah over Coffee.
Yeah, don't call for the upset there either. We got New Manchester over Noonan in that one. Other than that, everything else the same.
All right. So, New Manchester, interesting pick. Douglas County School, you're going with them. They must be better than the old Manchester. That's all I can say. All right. On the right side of the bracket, I like Sprayberry. We already talked about this earlier. I like Hughes, Gainesville, and Brunswick over Winder Barrow.
Yep, I'll agree. Yeah, I'll agree on those. None of them are particularly close except for Sprayberry Lee County. Again, 3-point spread for Sprayberry.
Yeah, and again, I think the best first round game in Class 5A is that Sprayberry Lee County game. Then in the bottom right hand bracket, I like Houston County, Rome, Milton, and Jackson County.
Yep, you got it. All the same on the right side.
All right. I think this is where things get interesting for us. I've already picked my Cinderella Statesboro. I got them again over Woodward Academy. I'm not a believer in the War Eagles this season. I like Statesboro. I like Thomas County Central, Roswell, and Sequoyah to be my quarterfinal matchup on the left side of the bracket.
Yeah, we do like Woodward to make it past Hab Central, which you wouldn't even have that game anyway since you picked Statesboro, but we do think Woodward and Thomas County Central in the Elite Eight, and then Roswell and Sequoyah in a really, really good Elite Eight game as well on the left side.
All right, that moves us to the right side. Langston Hughes has been a juggernaut all season. I like them to make it to the quarterfinals. I like Gainesville also to advance to the quarters. I like Houston to get past Rome in their matchup in the second round. And I tell you what, Milton, the rumor is their quarterback, he's back, he's healthy. I like the Milton Eagles. They've figured out a way to play some smash mouth, hard-nosed football games. I think Jackson County and that Region 8 might be the weakest region in the state. They're going to have to prove me wrong. I like Milton over Jacks Cove.
Yeah, so we agree on the top. Hughes will play Gainesville in the Elite Eight, but disagree completely on the bottom. We got Rome versus Jackson County down there. Jackson County was the 5th-ranked team in 5A for the Cooper Predictor, so Jackson County came in a very strong team according to the math, and it bears that out there. Milton does not get past Jackson County.
Interesting that they are the 5th ranked team, Coop. I just want to run through some of their opponents, and this is not a slam on the predictor. It's just uh, how we kind of look at these and where I kind of where I manage it. They beat Flowery Branch, which is a 4A team, 36-13. They lost to Jefferson again. Jefferson, a top team in Class 3A. Beat Decula, which is a 5A team, by 4. Not overly impressed with that. I think Decula is a 4th, if I'm not mistaken. They're the 4th seed out of Region 8. And then wins, albeit impressive wins over Clark Central, Alcovy, Appalachia, Wander Barrow, Loganville, and Hab Central. Nobody was close to them this season. But again, I'm just looking at that region. I'm not impressed with those teams in that region. I think this is a good team, not a great team. I just don't think they can handle Milton and the pedigree. Again, I've been wrong before. We'll see about it.
See about it. Milton's obviously played a tougher strength of schedule, have not fared well against that strength of schedule, hence why they're the 3rd seed, and they're going to need a lot of help from returning players, to your point, if they do get their quarterback back. But I think regardless, Jackson County winning by a large margin of victory week over week, game over game, does prove that they're a good football team. Milton, to me, has not proven that. You don't get flowers for losses. So that's why we bear that out that way. I do think that's probably the weakest part of the bracket, to be honest, when you look at it. But at the same time, how much more improved is Rome from week 3 to week 11 now? There's a big difference between the two. So it's an interesting bracket for sure.
Absolutely interesting. I'll just remind you, Coop, that Milton lost to Roswell on a Ballant Voris Smarty long field goal to win it for Roswell. So I think this is a Milton team that is right there and should be right in the hunt. Anyway, let's talk about.
Just say that Milton lost. Milton lost to Roswell. That's what I hear.
Okay, they did lose, and they're going to beat Jackson County. So that's and we can put another 8 Travis Scott meals on that one when we get there.
We can put one. I'm betting by the way, it's 9, but no, I'm not going to double or nothing in for
Okay,
you.
well, or that would be more like I don't even know, quintuple or nothing here at this point. I'm going to have to get. Anyway, semifinals. I like Thomas County Central. I'm going with Sequoyah. It's probably a homer pick. But over the last 4 years, we've seen them advance for one more round. I think this is probably the high water mark for Sequoyah, the semifinals. Langston Hughes, and I like Milton again for all the reasons I mentioned before. I think this is a team that is playing some of their best ball late. Take away that last second loss in the last game of the season. Those are my final 4 teams.
Yeah, agreed with you there. Sequoyah would be a 1-point favorite over Roswell on a neutral field. Coin flip really determines that to me. But I do go with Sequoyah, and then Rome beats Jackson County to be in the Final 4.
There you have it. So you've got those 4. And then, Coop, I've got number 1 and number 2 teams that have been close or at the top of my bracket all season long. They've been in at least the top 4. I like Hughes over Thomas County Central. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Last team with the football wins, and I like Langston Hughes over Thomas County Central.
Agreed on the game, disagree on the result. TCC will pull out the win in that one. The line would be an 8-point spread for Thomas County Central. They're ranked as the 2nd highest team in the state of Georgia.
All right. There you have it, our Class 5 or 6 and 5A brackets. Coop, you just want to run over our state champs and the other brackets while we have a chance. So just go right in order. I know you didn't go Class A private, but I think we both agree Hebron Christian, they've beaten everybody in classification. They spanked Prince Avenue Christian. They beat them last year in the state title game. Maybe the only team that can compete with them is Fellowship Christian, but Hebron already beat them. So we're going to just go ahead and put that out there. Both of us like Hebron Christian in Class A, private Class 3A to Class A. Now let's get to Class 4A. We've got the private schools out of the way. Coop, I like Creekside. I've been rolling with Coach Mo Dixon all season long as my number 1 team, and as my number 2 team in Class 4A. Just can't get over the hump to North Oconee, but I think they finally get it done. I don't even think they face North Oconee in the championship game. I like Creekside and Benedictine, and I like Creekside over the Cadets of Benedictine out of Savannah.
Yeah, we agree on that game and result. Creekside over Benedictine.
All right. Class 3A. This is something we went back and forth on. If I'm not mistaken, Sandy Creek has been really, I feel like, has been the class. They've really been the class of their region against teams like Troop and LaGrange, who are other top 10 teams. Have not really been tested. I tell you what, we've got a pretty good looking quarterfinal game if everything pans out between Calhoun and Sandy Creek. But I tell you what, the hot team. Cairo is a hot team. They'll have another on the other side of the bracket. I think Jefferson's going to get through Cairo. I like the Dragons to be in the finals. Peach County in that top bottom left bracket is another team to keep an eye on. Certainly, West Lawrence has a fantastic running back. Jenkins out of Savannah is a solid team that can make a push. I do like how we have these seeds here, so you're not matching up regions. You really have to look at these ball games. All that being said, I really think Sandy Creek is the team to beat. And I believe they will beat Jefferson in the finals.
Yep, agree on the game and the result as well.
All right, moving on to Class 2A. A couple of teams that I think could make some noise on that left side of the bracket. Certainly Sumter County, Carver, Atlanta. We've seen also teams like Morgan County, who's had a very strong season. Appling County has come out strong. As a matter of fact, I like Appling as a Final Four team. But I tell you what, something about the Sumter County Panthers, formerly known as America's Sumter. I like making it through to the finals. And then on the right side of the bracket, I like Carver Columbus. That would be a region rematch as those teams played to, I believe it was an 8-7 ball game with Carver Columbus winning that one. I think Sumter gets the best of them. They get there. They get a state title this season. Sumter over Carver Columbus.
Yeah, agree on the game, disagree on the result. Carver Columbus, your champs. Sumter County, the runner-up.
All righty. Class A Division One. Moving on down. Coop stacked. You've got on the left side. You've got a Fitzgerald team was down early, has made a run. You certainly have we talked about Thomas County Central, a potential what I would consider state title matchup in the second round. You talk about the PSR getting it right. You've got a Thomasville team facing off against a Toombs County team that I think would be a legit state title matchup. Throw all that out the window. Look, I like Toombs County getting to the state title game again. I think they have enough experience. They play in a tough region. I believe that it will be the Worth County Rams making it out of the top right quadrant to face Toombs County. And I believe I had the Worth County Rams winning this ball game.
Yeah, so we agree on the game, disagree on the result. Toombs County is your winner. Worth County Rams runner-up.
All right. Well, between the predictor and my brain, I feel like we're kind of neck and neck.
We're pretty in line.
At least I'm in the right church, maybe the wrong pew with the Cooper.
There you go.
So finally, last but not least, Class A Division II. Coop, I mentioned this. We mentioned this pre-production in our meeting. I like the Clinch County Panthers. It's for me a traditional power in South Georgia from when I was growing up. I think they're going to get all the way to the Final Four. And as a matter of fact, I like them in the finals. Their matchup, it's hard for me to pick against Brooks County, a team that don't go by the record. This is a team that's been battle tested. They faced a lot of higher seeded teams early in the season. I think they breezed through the first two rounds and then maybe match up with Lincoln County. Another game I think could be a state title matchup. But I think Brooks gets past Lincoln. But I like Clinch again to beat Brooks County in another region rematch game. And I know that you're going to tell me I'm wrong on this one.
Yeah, we got a big difference here. Clinch doesn't even get out of the Elite Eight. They'll lose to Wheeler County, who will lose to the eventual champion in Bowden. And then on the other side of that bracket, we have Lincoln County. You mentioned Brooks County. They lose to Johnson County way back in the group of 16. And then you move all the way up. So Lincoln County will face off against Bowden in the state title. Bowden is your winner. Lincoln County, your runner-up.
All right, so you're going with the Bowden Red Devils. You like Lincoln, so the Battle of the Red Devils here. The Lincoln County Red Devils, a lot of history with that program out in East Georgia. Against the Bowden Red Devils out in West Georgia, a team that's won back-to-back state titles. So, Coop, you're going for the three-peat for Bowden over the Lincoln County Red Devils. So, should be an exciting. I mean, I hope everyone has their brackets filled out. I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on the back and remind everyone that I'm the defending champ for Class 2A and Class A Division II for the Georgia High School Football Daily Pool, and I will put my title on the line again. More importantly, though, winning that will be great. Beating the Cooper predictor is what I'm up against this year. That's my metric here on the North Georgia Sports Report. And one way or another, Coop, I got a feeling that at least one of those classifications will be won by a representative from the North Georgia Sports Report.
I would say so, yes. I think that we will be able to pull one off. And I'm really excited to see how you and I match up. I think for our sake, and me personally, it's going to be interesting to see if my predictor is really bad in a classification compared to another. I don't know what that'll tell me statistically, but it'll be interesting to know.
It certainly will be interesting. And I'd like to, I think the other thing I think will be interesting is Class 3A, Class 2A, and Class A Division I, where the power rankings come into play, how that impacts a game versus where I might think, hey, this team is seated, seventh. I just think this is the best team regardless of power ranking, that's the best team in that classification. But much to be seen on that.
Well, I think that's the most interesting thing is that you and I, neither one, I believe, have a number one seed in the PSR that wins the tournament. So,
Exactly.
what are we really rating it on? And I think that'll be the most interesting thing as we get further into it. Is there going to be a number one that actually wins it? And if that never happens, then that tells you the math's probably wrong somewhere in there. Something's not right because you're not really getting the number one team.
Right.
So I know it's an adjustable formula. We'll figure it out as we go along. But glad we're here, man. Excited to see how we match up.
Absolutely, Coop. It's been a pleasure as always on this this little chilly Tuesday night here in North Central Georgia. But glad that we had all three county coaches on. Coach Devine, and again, we apologize for the technical difficulties we had with him. Coach Williams at Creekview, and of course, Coach Teter. We certainly appreciate them joining us. And last week, can't thank Bo Counts, Jeff Craig, Dave Garner for joining us and really making last week's show a success. We do appreciate all of them. And we couldn't do it without our listeners. We certainly do appreciate you all tuning in each and every week. We appreciate the feedback, the criticism, the love, the hate, all of the above. We appreciate it. Just be nice to Coop, all right? Just be nice to Coop. He's a hardworking man back here, making sure all of this sounds good for you. And so just be nice to Coop. And again, River Ridge, much love to you. But we got nothing for you this week. So I'm throwing a little shade at Night Nation that I'm sure, Coop, they'll remember come next August when we talk River Ridge football. So in the event, we look forward to joining you next week because our hope is that we're gonna, not our hope, but we will run our podcast until all the Cherokee County teams are eliminated from playoff contention. And our goal is to be running this podcast through the second week of December when the state finals happen at the Ben Stadium in downtown Atlanta. So stay with us all playoff long. We'll be here talking about it, Cherokee County. Thanks again for listening. Coop, thank you so much. With the what did I say last week? Perfectly coiffed hair. You've got the no shave hair going on. You're a distinguished gentleman, and we certainly do appreciate your input, your insight each and every week. And again, for Will Cooper, I've been Art Mosley. And again, thanks to our listeners. Have a great week, everybody.